Hi everyone, welcome back. In this series, I will try to cover um, the labs which are part of the DP-203 Azure Data Engineer certification exam. Now, this will be more like a crash course or just a revision of the concepts that are asked in Azure Data Engineer series. I'm not really trying to deep dive on all the services or all the questions or everything asked, but it is more like a brush up. And sometimes people want to do labs, but they might not have access to Azure portal, or they might have portal, but they don't really know what needs to be done. So let's jump back in the video. Before starting, let me introduce myself. I'm Sushil. I'm a certified cloud and DevOps expert. I have been working as the cloud expert for organizations where I've helped them migrate or modernize their cloud environment, and I'm passionate about fitness and technology, and I share my knowledge using my blog, thetechguy.in. Now, this is more like the lab where I walk you through how you create Synapse, what are the basic steps or tasks that you can perform on the Synapse Studio. Now, before we jump back on the lab, I just want to give you a background on what Synapse is, why we use Synapse, and etc. Now, what really is Azure Synapse? Now, Azure Synapse, it was previously called a SQL Data Warehouse. If you've used SQL Data Warehouse, it has been renamed to Azure Synapse Analytics. Synapse Analytics is nothing but a data warehouse service that Microsoft Azure provides. Now, if you have been a data person, because I assume you're preparing for DP-203, you have fundamental knowledge of OLTP and OLAP. This is basically analytics platform where Azure gives you a platform where you can run your analysis, and you can really perform all the transformation analysis, etc. So Synapse Analytics is a OLAP offering that Azure provides, and you can use it for your analytics and etc. Now, why we use? Because it gives you on-demand and provision resource. You really do not have to worry about all the linked services and all the dependencies that they have. Usually, when you create Azure Synapse Analytics, you have something called Studio. You have data ingestion management and everything taken care, and you can use Apache Spark notebooks. You can use SQL queries in the backend. You use linked data lake GenApp storage, and then it has built-in support for all other analytics or machine learning services that Microsoft provides. So Synapse, in a way, is a end-to-end solution where you can let me walk you in the next slide why we use Synapse. Because Synapse is a solution, is a standalone alone solution which provides all the capabilities in a single platform. It offers a deep integration with familiar tools, for example, Power BI, machine learning, etc. And it really helps you manage the entire life cycle, where you create your pipelines, where you do your transformation, where you run your SQL queries, where you have your storage, SQL pools, etc. in a single pane. That is why Synapse came into existence, and Synapse has been heavily used. Now, what is a usual Synapse lifecycle? What we do, I mean, it's not really just the Synapse lifecycle. It is a data lifecycle that happens usually. When you're dealing with data, the end goal is to use data to achieve something, right? You're using Facebook, for example. Facebook is collecting all the data. Why? Because it wants to predict what you as a user will be expecting in the next probably a month, and then it tries to serve you ads based on that. That's what Google does, right? If you search something on Google, it is collecting all the data that you're doing, and then it is processing, and then it is providing the customized solutions, ads, etc. to you based on what you're doing. So that is the whole idea why data is used and what is the purpose of data. Now, when you use data analytics helps you achieve those things, those results. So first of all, data is ingested because data is collected from a lot of sources, right? And then data is ingested somewhere. For example, data lake in this matter, or storage in this matter. Now, data is ingested somewhere, and once data is ingested, it is analyzed. We want to run some sort of analysis. We want to transform it. We want to make sure data is in a state that can be analyzed, that can be that we can do something with this, right? We want to probably filter, we probably want to remove all the junk values, we might want to customize this based on what our tool or what our application is designed to do. So there can be a lot of transformations, there can be a lot of changes done, cleansing done, for example, right, structuring done based on your needs. That is where this analytics comes in. And once you have data in the form that your application expects, or your queries expect, or you expect data to be, once you have that, you run all the analysis on top of the data. And once you have done all the analysis, then it is really easy to project it in a format, tabular, or whatever, depending on charts, however you want to project. You can really project all the data and visualize it. So that is the overall life cycle of data, and that is what we really do with the data. And Synapse helps you do all this in a single pane. You don't really have to manage multiple tools. You don't really have to manage a tool for ingestion, and then other tool for analysis, and then other tool for transformation, ETL, basically, right? You don't have to manage different tools for each and every life cycle. You really have a tool that helps you cover entire life cycle in a single pane. Now, what is the Synapse architecture or component looks like? In Synapse is really complicated. It's not easy to cover entire architecture in one page, but these are the primary or main components that are part of the Synapse architecture. First of all, the control node. Control node is basically the brain of Synapse, I would say. Control node is the brain of the architecture. This is what interacts with your applications and connections, and it manages all the queries and resource allocation, etc. So control node is what does all the um, uh, controlling, I would say, to put in simple words. And then we have the compute nodes. Compute nodes are what do all the heavy lifting. So control nodes receives everything, passes it on to the compute node. Compute nodes node does all the computational work, as the name suggests. These runs all the queries, helps you perform on the analysis, all the transformation, etc. And then it is passed on or done whatever you're expecting the Synapse to do. Now, when we talk about compute nodes, we also have to talk about the distribution. See, it is a OLAP, it is a warehouse, it is an analytics platform, which means you will be running hundreds and thousands and millions of queries at a time, and you expect it to be fast, right? That is where the distribution comes in, which distributes your queries to the nodes. So in SQL, in Synapse, you'll have 60 distributions, which distributes your queries into 60 smaller queries that are run in parallel. So using distribution, Synapse really helps you run parallel querying to make sure your queries are fast. Now, depending, for example, you have 60, let's assume you're using a really heavy compute in the backend. I talk about dedicated. So we have I'll talk about dedicated and serverless. For example, you're using a machine or a compute in the backend which really has 60 nodes. So your 60 distributions will be distributed on one distribution every node, which means your queries will be really fast because your query is running on 60 different nodes at a time. Now, for example, you just have 4 nodes. every node will have 15 distributions per node. Your queries will still be fast because your query is distributed on 4 nodes, but you still will not be faster compared to the 60 nodes. So that is where this distribution comes in, and that is how distribution really helps you take advantage of parallel querying in Synapse. And in Synapse, because I told you you'll get data from multiple location, you'll be ingesting all the data. Data has to be stored somewhere, right? Your data, because the data will be you'll query all the data, you'll process all the data, so the data is stored in Azure storage. So you'll have Azure data lake storage also in the backend, and data lake storage will be used for storing all the data, and then your SQL queries will use queries to ingest and read all the data. And then there is something called data movement service, or DMS as we call, because there will be few queries where data has to be moved from one node to another node. And in that case, that is where data movement service comes in. It is a data transport technology that helps in the data movement across the different nodes. Now, DMS is available in dedicated SQL pool. In serverless SQL pool, you have something called distributed query processing engine, which also in a way helps in your distribution. Because see, what distribution is doing, distribution is helping you with the parallel querying, right? So distributed query processing engine does the same thing. It helps you take the advantage of distributed query processing and runs your query parallelly on multiple node pools. Now, um, let's jump back on the portal and let me walk you through data warehouse. Data. So I already created Synapse Workspace to save time, but I'll just walk you through how you can create a Synapse Workspace. You can click on create a resource. I assume you're familiar with the Azure portal. You click on create a resource and you search Synapse. And if I search Synapse, the first service I'll get is Azure Synapse Analytics. Click on Azure Synapse Analytics and I click on create. And you can use your subscription, you can use your resource group. For example, I have an existing resource group and I can use a managed resource group. Now, what is a managed resource group? Because till now you would have understood that Synapse uses multiple things in the backend. It has SQL pool, it has data lake storage, it can has managed identity, it can have linked service, etc. So managed resource group is a container that holds all the resources created by Synapse Analytics Works. Now it's not mandatory. You can not give it, then it will generate a random name. But if you give a name, it uses that particular resource group for all the resources associated with your Synapse workspace. Now, workspace name, it has to be unique. For example, if I use Sushil, I'll oh perfect. Or if I use Synapse, uh, because it is not available, it has to be unique. Because I'll show you why, but it has to be unique. You choose your region. You choose your data lake storage. As I mentioned, it uses storage in the backend, and then you click on security. Now Synapse uses a SQL pool in the backend for all the queries and processing that you do. So you choose your SQL admin password and you click on networking. Now you have managed network or not managed, which we will talk in next videos. This is again helps you with the private endpoint, etc. But we'll not deep dive on this. Use tags and then you create. Now I already have created Synapse. I'll not create it now. I go to my resource group and this is my Synapse Analytics workspace that is already created. Let it load. Okay. Now you see this endpoint, or for example, this endpoint. Now you see it has a it's basically a URL, right? It's a URL, which means it has to be unique, because if I use any name, it will append this .sql.azuresynapse.net at the end, and then it will try to save the workspace name. Now, because this is a URL, it has to be unique globally, not in your subscription. It has to be unique globally. Now I can access my workspace using this URL, and let this workspace open. Now this will be a simple walkthrough where I've shown you how you can provision. I'll explore Synapse Studio. I'll walk you through how you can ingest data using a pipeline, and then how you can view the ingested data using a serverless SQL pool to analyze the data as well. Or I think this video is already 15 minutes longer. What I will do is I'll cut it down in two videos. First one, I've just talked about the Synapse architecture and why we use Synapse. In next video, I'll walk you through the entire lab. Okay. Now, if you have anything else that you want me to cover, please let me know, and hope you have a good one. Thank you.